Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but we want to give a shout out to our partners, the Florida Coaches Coalition, We Coach, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. You've heard me say many times before, these are four great organizations. You should add them to your network. And now, don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes. We're going to give our sponsors a shout out. These are all companies I used as an athletic director. You should be using them too. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to display your school record boards, your school's Hall of Fame, or simply showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention this podcast, you'll get a nice discount. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper is the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to show you how to start creating world-class content for your school's social media channel. It's so easy, even I can do it. It's professional graphic design made simple. Mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com to start selling your tickets online. It's digital ticketing that offers more. Hometownticketing.com. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule a live web demo, and see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com right now and set up that demo. We'd also like to say thank you to Home Campus. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association platform for our podcast. It's also your one-stop for things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance, and a whole lot more. Go to homecampus.com, talk to their team, see all the things that they can do for you and your program. That's homecampus.com. We also want to thank Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com. That's the website. Check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. If you're looking for a fundraiser, stop right here. SnapRaise is hands down the best fundraising platform out there. But there's so much more, and you can find it all at snapraise.com. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, and it was just fantastic. But when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that allowed them to coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, see why we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At our school, we use surveys for just about everything, teachers, coaches, parents, and the information that came back was almost always positive, which was a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking to a frustrated parent, your principal, or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey for you that lets you take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. That's athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to Alabama today. Surprisingly, we've only been there a few times, but we've got a great guest, and he's actually been on the podcast before. We're going to be visiting with Nick Wilson. Now, Nick is a teacher and a coach at Ashville High School, which is in Alabama, but he's also the director of ops and media for their athletic program. We're going to take a deep dive into that, but Nick Wilson, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Jake, it's great to be here, man. And I just want to, I didn't tell you before we started recording, but I've been binging a lot of episodes lately, and it's really cool to be on here. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for those kind words. We certainly enjoy. Again, we just say we share best practices, not mine, but our guests. For listeners, we had Nick on maybe a couple of months ago, and he was actually the guest of one of our sponsors, Huddle. And Nick shared how how he uses Huddle to help promote the teams at Asheville. And I'm sure he's going to get into that again today. But Nick, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up to your own college days, and then we'll take a break and then come back and hear about some of your early career. But as I like to say, what's the Nick Wilson origin story?
Yeah, so it actually started here in Asheville, Alabama. Born and raised. My grandparents were born and raised here, graduated from here, parents. So I'm a third generation Asheville graduate. And I went K through 12 here at Asheville High School. I was involved in sports my entire career through school, and thoroughly enjoyed it. There's about 380 kids, 9 through 12. There's about 2,500 people in the town. So it is small town USA to the T. And I was involved in pretty much everything all the way through. My brother was involved in athletics. I was involved in athletics. And so we kept our parents busy and fell in love with football. That became kind of my main focal point. I wasn't good enough to play at the next level. And I kind of realized that after talking with some of my coaches. I had some really honest coaches in school, and I actually ended up creating some really cool bonds with those guys that sort of led me here. But needless to say, I ended up at Auburn University in 2014, in the fall of 2014, and I actually ended up working with the football program down there as a video guy, but that would later evolve into an operations role as a student. Studied social studies education down there for 4 years, thoroughly enjoyed it. For all those Alabama fans listening, I did grow up an Alabama fan, and I went to the dark side, or like I like to say, I found the light side. But my brother went to Auburn too, so we're both Auburn grads, and our parents are Alabama fans. So if you're from the state of Alabama, you know how interesting the Iron Bowl can be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Growing up in Oregon, Oregon and Oregon State, huge rivals. I think maybe even a little bit older than that. And they for years they called that game the Civil War. But it doesn't seem to get the press that Auburn and Alabama get, probably because of those terrible years back in the 70s when I was a kid. Want to jump back to you mentioned growing up in a small town, quintessential small town America, and you had a brother. Now, were you an older brother or younger brother?
I'm the older brother. Yes, sir. By
Okay.
2 years.
I was the younger brother. I had two older brothers, and again, my life was chasing after them, trying to be like them, and then at times trying to avoid getting beat up by them. What was your experience like as that older brother in the small town USA perspective?
So it's interesting that you asked that question, Jake, because my brother and I had this conversation last week. I don't know how you and your brothers are, but my little brother and I are very, very, very different. Almost, I'm not going to say total opposites, but he was definitely the more athletic of the two of us, is still the more athletic of the two of us. And so growing up, I was I was a little bit better at the academic side of things. And we laughed last week. He's a civil engineer for a concrete company in Birmingham, and I'm the coach. And so it's kind of interesting how uh, neither one of us ever thought that we would end up where we have. And we had a long conversation about what we each thought we were going to do and where we've ended up. And it's been pretty awesome, because every time we end up talking, whether we're struggling with what we're doing now in our careers, or really anything else. A lot of times it's how we both lived growing up and how we both did such different things as teenagers, how that kind of influences us now. But he'll have a problem come up at work, and I'll be able to give him a little bit of insight, and I'll have a problem come up at work, especially when it comes to if I've got an athlete that I'm having a hard time reaching. And again, this came up in our conversation last week. It's he just comes out of nowhere with some of the most insightful advice. And I look at him, Reagan, where did that come from? And a lot of times he goes back to, when he was an athlete, he played way more sports than I did growing up, and was baseball was his sport. But he played basketball, played football, ran a little bit of track at one point. And so we lean on each other. He kind of grounds me, I guess, when I start to get tunnel vision on the coaching side of things, and I forget to think about it from the kids' perspective, and that helps a lot. And so even today, I think there's, because you have brothers, you got to help each other in a way that's brotherly and that shows love, but that doesn't show too much love. At least that's how my brother and I are. And it's really, really cool to see him help me, especially in this job that's so emotional, that's so grounded in interacting with people that are so inexperienced, not only at what they're doing, but in just life in general. And so he's been huge for me over the past, especially the past 2 years. He's been really, really huge for me and helping me. And our relationship actually has gotten a lot better too than it ever was in high school, that growing up. And so that's been cool to see.
Well, that's such a cool, story, if you will. And it's great that you still have a relationship, and that's actually even gotten better than it was, when you guys were in high school. Very cool stuff. For our listeners, our guest today is Nick Wilson. He's a teacher and coach at Ashville High School in Alabama. He's also the director of ops and media for the athletic program. We're going to talk more about that, but let's go and take our first break. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at VitalSignsWallOfFame.com. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the sports, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to VitalSignsWallOfFame.com. Mention this podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. Their products allow you to showcase your school's proudest moments, your diverse history, and along with your top role models. The interactive touchscreen process is very cool. And if you go to VitalSignsWallOfFame.com, their team is going to show you how you can add one of these great consoles to your school. That's VitalSignsWallOfFame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Nick, you took us up through, your college years, but you mentioned you had an opportunity to work with the Auburn football program. Tell us a little bit about that, and then where that led after graduation.
Absolutely. So my senior year of high school, I actually, like I mentioned earlier, I grew up an Alabama fan. And so I applied to 3 schools. I had the school that I wanted to go to, the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, my backup school, which is Jacksonville State University in Jacksonville, Alabama, and then my backup school, which was Auburn University. And so I got into all 3 schools. I actually ended up getting full academic rides to all 3 schools. And then I approached the Alabama athletic department and the Alabama football team and said, hey, I've got some of these skills. I plan on coming here in the fall. I would love to participate and be a part of the program in some capacity. And they basically said, sorry, we're good. And don't know how really still, I do know how it happened, but I don't know the specifics. But basically Auburn, a gentleman by the name of Brent Thomas, who was the video coordinator for Auburn football, found out that I had a full ride to Auburn and that I had a certain skill set and that I was interested in working in college athletics. And he basically got in contact with me and said, hey, you want to come down here and work for an SEC football program? And I said, absolutely, War Eagle, let's go. And so I ended up in Auburn in 2014, worked for Auburn football from 2014 to 2018. I did video work as a student from 2014 to 2016. And then in 2016, I kind of made like a tiny pivot into operations, working with the director of football operations and the chief of staff at Auburn football. I still kind of did some video stuff as well, but I really helped with logistics and stuff like that. Got to learn the operations side of college football. And that's kind of how I finished it out at Auburn, and had some really, really fun times, really good years there. You know, we went to the SEC championship in 2017, beat Georgia and Alabama at home when each of them were number one. So made a lot of memories, met a lot of cool people, and, you know, thankful that I was blessed enough to have those experiences.
Now, obviously, that's a tremendous environment, almost, I would dare say, a professional level, you know, let's say NFL level from a football standpoint. Any thoughts while you were there about, you know, boy, this is great, I'm going to do this the rest of my life? Or, you know, did you have designs on becoming a high school teacher and coach?
Never did I think so. So when I got to Auburn and I started in that, I never thought that was a possibility that I could enter into college or even professional athletics, whether video or operations or administration. But by the end, by the time 2018 rolled around, my boss came to me and said, "Hey, there's an opportunity potentially for you at the University of Texas San Antonio." And then I had another opportunity at the University of Arkansas. And so I had just completed my internship, my educational internship at Auburn High School. And I had a job offer in high school athletics and high school education. And so it's sort of like I was at a crossroads, and I had to decide in that moment. And then, you know, the famous phrase, mama called. Ashville High School called and offered me a position, and it was everything that kind of a callback to when I left to go to Auburn, everything that I'd kind of envisioned for myself when I graduated. So I had all of this that I had never dreamed of over here waiting for me. And then I kind of had what I'd planned on doing waiting for me too. And ultimately it came down to, you know, those coaches that I mentioned earlier. I wanted to kind of be like those guys. And I really enjoyed college athletics. Like I said, I made a lot of memories, met a lot of cool people. Would have loved to have done that the rest of my life. Would have made a little bit more money too. But at the end of the day, Asheville was so good to me growing up. This high school was so good to me. I felt like I sort of owed it to them to come back and be here for our kids, for our community's kids. And I mean, a lot of these kids being from here, I've known them since, as we say around here, they were knee high to a grasshopper. I mean, since they were little. So it's cool to see them grow up and be a part of those experiences as they move on into life. So I ended up coming back home and getting into coaching and public education.
Now, in this situation, I always ask this question, going back, now you're right out of college. So your teachers, your coaches that you had 4 years ago, many of them still there. How was that coming back for you? I remember when I graduated, I subbed for a couple years and went back to my high school as a substitute teacher. And my best friend from high school also was a teacher, and we're both subbing that same day. We walked into back then it was the teacher's lounge. And here's all of our old coaches, you know, teachers, and they turn around and one of them goes, "You two guys became teachers?" So how was that for you coming back?
It was amazing because the way we talked and the way we communicated changed just a little bit, but the overall concept of them still teaching me didn't change, because it went from, okay, I'm going to teach you about chemistry and anatomy and maybe even a little bit of life, to I'm going to teach you how to teach and how to mentor. Because that was the biggest thing was, you know, when I came back here in 2018, and when I got back here in 2018, it was like, okay, now my anatomy teacher's still here, my math teacher's still here, my English teacher's still here, and my football coach is still here. So like, they're not teaching me about these things. They're teaching me how to be an adult and how to approach these kids and navigate these intense emotional situations. And it was cool because I still had them in my life, and I still got to build on that relationship that we had with each other in high school. And there's still people here that I work with 6 years later that I really enjoy being around, that I had as teachers in high school, and now I've gotten to know them as coworkers, and so that's been great. It's been a really cool experience.
Yeah. Now, one quick question too. You mentioned you were third generation, Asheville. Did you have any teachers, maybe when you were like in the ninth grade or something, that, had taught your parents, or goodness, maybe even your grandparents? Any of those come up?
So it's funny. I had one teacher that taught my dad in high school. I graduated exactly 30 years after my dad, and I had one teacher that taught my dad. But most of my teachers went to school with my parents,
Okay, yeah.
and so it was, I've got dirt on you because I've known you your entire life. You better not act up. And I've got your dad and your mom on speed dial. Act up in class, see what happens. So that was funny. I got to experience that, and it's cool though, because now I'm that teacher to some of these kids that I've known, since they were young. So
Right.
that was fun.
And again, that's one of those great things, maybe not from the kids' perspective, but for you, one of those great things about a small town. Okay.
Exactly.
For our listeners, our guest today is Nick Wilson. He's a teacher and coach. He's also the director of operations and media at Ashville High School, and that's in Asheville, Alabama. Let's go and take another break, but we're coming back with some more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper for their support. Gipper is the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to show you how to start creating world-class marketing content for your school's social media channels. You should be celebrating your athletes and promoting your teams. And Gipper, which is used by over 3,000 athletic programs, both high school and college across the country, is going to help you make professional designs for your social media account. That's where the kids are. That's where you need to be. It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com, mention the podcast. They'll give you a nice little discount. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. Their team is going to show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for athletic events, but things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school gets assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. Hometown Ticketing, it's digital ticketing that offers more. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest today is Nick Wilson. He's a teacher and a coach at Ashville High School in Asheville, Alabama. Nick, one of the things that we try to do with this podcast is share best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do as a school, or maybe you personally at Asheville, that you would consider best practices that you can share with our listeners?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because we have, so at Asheville, a little context for you, we have a unified, centralized booster organization, 501c3 nonprofit organization, which we fundraise and operate all, put all our resources into, I guess you could say, for the development of our student athletes. And one thing that when I got hired, when I came back to Asheville as a coach and a teacher, and somebody that really kind of jumped headfirst into the athletic department, I knew immediately that when I was going through school here, that there was sort of a disconnect between the school and the community. And one of your sponsors, Huddle, I actually went to Huddle headquarters and sort of talked about our digital strategy and our live streaming strategy, and brought this up when I went back and spoke with those guys back in April. But there wasn't a bridge. There wasn't anything. There wasn't a program. There wasn't a tool. There wasn't communication. There was nothing linking our school, our kids' success or failures to the community. It's almost like we operated on an island. And so when I came back, I knew immediately, like, okay, we had a new AD at the time that got hired, a new head football coach that came in, and a fairly new principal. She'd only been here a year. And so we kind of got together, and I was the only one that was from here. And so we got together, and I pitched this idea of, okay, we've got to buy into the community if we want to get them bought into us. And, we had some capital improvements projects that we wanted to move forward with. Our school system was fairly, I'm not going to say they weren't supportive, but they were very strapped. There was some other projects in another part of the system that they were a little more focused on, as they should have been. So we didn't have a lot of immediate support from the school system because they couldn't provide it at the moment. And so we wanted to go ahead and get, you're new, you're getting into it, you want to go ahead and do stuff. And so what we did was it sounds very simple, but for us, it was huge. I don't think I ate at home any day, like any weekday, for the first 2 years that I worked here. It was like, no joke, we had a rotation. So I was going to go to this restaurant and eat. Our AD was going to go to this restaurant and eat. Our principal was going to go eat breakfast with her husband at this restaurant. And we were going to press the flesh as much as possible with as many people as possible. And what that ended up doing for us, fast forward 3 years down the road, we came across an alumnus that had not been connected with Ashville High School since he left in 1979. Now he's the CEO of a major defense company. And he ended up basically through those interactions, getting back in touch with us. And we just built a relationship with him, and he introduced us to some other people. And then he said, hey, why don't we kick off a fundraising campaign for all these capital improvements projects that you have planned? Fast forward another year, and we had raised about $250,000 for these capital improvements projects. And that was just simply because we went out into the community, even one as small as Asheville. So imagine if you're in a larger school or a larger school system, what you could do. And in a town of 2,500 people, we raised $250,000 for our long-term capital improvements plan. And it was huge for us. That's something that we had never even imagined we could do. And we built a new hitting facility here. Every single locker room on campus has gone through a renovation, and we're getting ready to renovate our track, hopefully for our track team moving forward. So it's been awesome. That simple thing of just reaching out and building relationships and making sure they're genuine was huge for us.
It's such an important lesson, for listeners to do just that, to reach out. I think so often, you're waiting for people to come to you, and, just going out and you mentioned it, making sure it's, sincere, it's coming from the heart, making those connections. I think most people do have positive memories, mostly from their high school days, and they want to get involved. During that series of, as you called it, pressing the flesh, any, humorous stories or surprises for you or the other members of your team as they were, reaching out to people?
It's funny you mentioned that. So we have a very competitive wrestling program on campus, and I was coaching with the wrestling team at the time. I'm not anymore. But we were on our way back from the state tournament. We just placed third in the state. We're coming off. We were state champions the year prior. We thought, we were going to win. We had all the momentum, and you can't predict everything that's going to happen. And we had a few injuries that popped up during the tournament, and so we came away with third place. So we're kind of sulking, and we stop off at a restaurant on our way back in the city where the tournament was being held, and we're at this Mexican restaurant, really nice Mexican restaurant, sitting down. Everybody's got on their Asheville gear, and we're seated right next to this birthday party. And I mean, they're celebrating this older gentleman, and I say older gentleman. He wasn't that old, but he was graying, and
Careful now.
and,
Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry, and experienced anyway. And so we're sitting there, and then you know how you can kind of feel somebody's eyes, like when they start to kind of stare through you. I started to feel that, and we had some kids with us, some of our athletes that weren't wrestling, that wanted to come and watch their friends. And so immediately I sort of got a little bit, kind of defensive, like, okay, what's this guy staring at us for? We've got these kids at this table. And he stands up, he walks over, and he shakes my hand, and he introduces himself. And it was, when he said his name, I immediately knew who it was. He was actually he coaches at Grissom now, but he's a Hall of Fame basketball coach in the state of Alabama. And he saw us wearing Asheville stuff. He said, "Are y'all from Asheville?" And we said, "Of course, yes, sir, we are." He said, "Well, he introduced himself. He said, "I'm such and such." And he said, "I grew up going fishing in Asheville with my father. And I remember one time we were driving right by the high school, and my dad got a flat tire, and this man came out, and he was the principal. His name was Ken Logan, who our football stadium is now named after." And he said Ken Logan, and he was wearing a suit. He had just got done doing job interviews, and it was the middle of the summer. He came out and helped us change our tire and help my father and I. He said, "I'll never forget that." He said, every time during the summer, we drive by that school, and my dad would just smile on our way to our little fishing hole in Asheville. And I mean, they lived, like 45 minutes away from Asheville, but they had a fishing hole here for some reason. And so, and he just sat, it was his birthday, by the way. He left his birthday party to come over and sit with us and talk to our kids about Asheville, his fond memories of Asheville. I'm going to get choked up talking about it. Anyway, and so, and he talked about it like he grew up here, and he didn't even grow up here. And then he started talking about all these people that he knew. And I said, "Yeah, we've been trying to contact him. He contacted somebody and said that they were interested in donating." He said, "Well, I'll call him right now and see if he wants to donate," because we were raising some money for our a new floor, a new basketball court. And him being a basketball coach, he kind of understood the importance of that. Called him up right there. 30 minutes later, we walked out of that Mexican restaurant with $15,000 with a $15,000 check.
Wow.
Towards our basketball court, just because of our ability to, I guess, communicate, and just like it was all by chance. But when he came over there, I didn't look at him weird like I wanted to, because he was staring a hole through me earlier. But we just engaged in a natural discussion and conversation about a place that we both really, really loved. And it was those memories, it was that conversation, it was that relationship. And we still text to this day. He called me not too long ago just to check in on those boys that he got to meet that night, asking them how they were doing with football, as we're in the middle of football season as of this recording. And so it was really cool. I think it just speaks to the power of relationships and conversation and nostalgia to a certain extent.
Absolutely. But also, again, it's a great reminder that, when you're an AD, a coach, or for you to share with your kids, when you're wearing that jersey, that jacket, that warm up, I mean, you are representing that school, that community, and you can represent for good, or you can make a not so good impression. So obviously your boys, you as a coach, your party made a big impact on his party, especially him. Great stuff. Wow, what a great story. I love that. For our listeners, one more time, our guest today is Nick Wilson. He's a teacher and a coach at Ashville High School in Alabama. He's also the director of ops and media, and that's what we're going to talk about next. But let's go and take a quick break. We're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Sideline Interactive for their support of the podcast. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their indoor score tables and video boards. You should also schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that allowed them to coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, see why we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school.
Jay, when I tell you that Huddle is indispensable at Asheville High School, it truly has become a product and a service that not only our coaches can't live without, it's our fans as well when you talk about the live streaming side of it. So I'm really, really, really proud to say that we're a Huddle school, not just a Huddle program, but a Huddle school. And I mean, and Sideline Interactive too. We have a digital scores table that we love. You know, I know you talk about in your ads using it at pep rallies and at assemblies, and we use it nonstop to promote our partners with with the Asheville Sports Foundation, and it's something that our fans, I don't know, it adds a nice little touch on game day for volleyball, for wrestling, for basketball. We love it. We absolutely love it.
Well, Nick, I appreciate you saying that. And again, for Huddle, I knew how great it was as a football coach, but I was a little bit nervous, I guess, about becoming a Huddle school. But our coaches, like I say in the ad, they just loved it. You know, our volleyball coach, our basketball coaches, we had the camera, you know, in the gym, they'd program it themselves. They'd start videotaping practice. And sometimes the exchanges were easy, you know, same thing out on the field for football and soccer and lacrosse. So again, Huddle is great. And the phrase that I used, you heard me say it, as far as Sideline Interactive, probably one of the best purchases I ever made. Yeah. So glad that you enjoy it. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about tech and media. I kind of teased you when you were on the Tech Tuesday about, you know, director of operations and media. Boy, every high school in America would love to have that. You very gently corrected me. Well, I teach and coach too. So, but what are some of the things that you do in your role as director of ops and media for the teams and programs at Asheville High School?
Yes, sir. So I mentioned it earlier. You know, at Asheville, we have a centralized booster organization. It is separate from the school. So I sort of, as when it comes to the operations side of things, I sort of act as the liaison between our athletic programs, our athletic department, and that organization. I'm heavily involved in working with that organization in terms of development and fundraising for all of the different programs and their needs, as well as our athletic director. Our athletic director sort of leads the charge, but I sort of help on the day-to-day side of things. I communicate a lot with our treasurer and our chairman of the organization to make sure that everything's taken care of from a day-to-day perspective on campus. And it leaves our AD free so that he can handle sort of the bigger picture items, and especially when it comes to eligibility and talking with our local state organization, program schedules, that kind of a thing. And so what I get to do is I basically get to sit back and think of, okay, what are some creative ways for us to make some more money, fundraise in a way that's fun for the community, that's fun for the kids, and that's effective. And okay, this is what we need to do. Now let's go do it. So that's pretty much what I get to do from the operations side of things, and making sure that, you know, on game day, those particulars of those different projects are kind of carried out, whether it's football or volleyball or basketball or softball or whatever it is. And so I basically just get to sit back and be creative and try to help raise as much money. And not just that, but, you know, we talked about it earlier. create a bridge, kind of create more opportunities for the community to buy in, and for the kids to sort of buy into the community. And then when it comes to the media side of that, I basically get to play around with technology and figure out unique and creative ways to do those things through media, through technology. And, we just talked about Huddle, but it's really been fun working with those guys, and they've actually really done a really good job of listening to what we want and what we need, so that we're better prepared and more able to promote our athletes and promote our programs in a way that's more accessible for our fans at Asheville. So I basically get to mess around every single day and come up with creative projects, and just kind of be creative. It scratches that creative itch that I have from time to time. So I really enjoy it.
Now, you and I have talked about this before. You're certainly, of a younger generation, a more technology generation than myself. As you do your job, trying to promote teams and athletes at Asheville, do you have any coaches like me, those cranky old get off the porch guys that have been reluctant to embrace technology? And if so, how did you kind of help them ease them into becoming tech friendly?
It's yes. We have. We've had that experience. So ironically, the answer to that question was more technology. So when Huddle came out with the all school deal, the AD package, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago now, I can't really remember. There were a lot of folks that were hesitant, not just coaches, but the guys writing the check, the booster organization. Everybody was hesitant. Like, they see the price tag, they're like, whoa, okay, hold on now. And I said, well, look, it's invaluable for your athletes to see themselves on the field. And this is, we had it for football already. So really I'm preaching to basketball, I'm preaching to softball and baseball and wrestling at this point, really, and volleyball. That's kind of who I'm talking to. Football was on board. They understood the value of the service. The problem that all the other programs had, they said, well, I'm the coach, I'm busy, I don't have enough time to go get the camera set up and have a student run it. I need somebody that can come in, that can keep up with the camera, keep up with the tripod, set it up, record it, upload it, cut it up if it needs to be cut up, and that kind of a thing. And I said, well, if we sign this all school deal, we get a camera that does all that for us. So that was kind of the answer. And it almost didn't happen. But now looking back, I've had so many people tell me that coaches and fans that they can't live without it, without the focus system, for that exact reason, because you pull out your phone, and I taught them, it's just, you log in on the Focus app, boom, and you go. So that's one example. Another example was we have a school website that we have linked to our donation software, or our athletic website that we linked to our donation software. And it was getting our coaches to understand, look, if you just send out this link to your parents, they can pay for their Spirit Pack online, and you don't have to worry about keeping up with the money and the receipting and all that good. Like, just send the link. And as soon as I got that across to them, it's their eyes just went wide, and they said, oh, wow, I don't have to worry about receipting the money, keeping up with it, not drops. Is my bookkeeper going to chew me out tomorrow morning? So all that was, those two things immediately kind of pop into my mind as ways that we got a little pushback on, but now that we've sort of implemented it, it's made everybody's lives a lot easier.
Yeah, I love the Spirit Pack example. Many of our coaches, and I'm sure it was the same at your school, had delegated that to a parent or parents
Yes.
To do. And so the coach, he already didn't have to deal with it, or she didn't have to deal with it. But when the parents found out that this was going to be available to them, they were all over it. Absolutely, we want to have this. Nick, again, you wear a lot of hats there, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit about, ops and media, or just about anything, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So my school email address is nicholas.wilson@sccboe.org. nicholas.wilson@sccboe.org. Or I'm on Twitter at Nick_K_Wilson. That's my handle. Send me an email, send me a DM on Twitter. My email address is on our school and athletic website as well. So, and then if you do that, I'll be happy to send you my phone number. You can call me, we can text, whatever you want to do. I'll be more than happy to talk to whomever. And if anybody out there has any advice on anything that I've talked about, please tell me, hey, you're doing this wrong, dude. Like, this is what I would do. Seriously, because we're always open to new ideas here.
Oh, absolutely. And for our listeners, we'll give that information out again, but just Google Nick Wilson, Ashville High School, and the school website pops up there. And he is very active on Twitter. Let's go and take another break, but we are coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank the folks at Snap Mobile for their support of the podcast. Go to snapraise.com. That's the website, snapraise.com. Check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. If you're looking for a fundraising platform, stop right here. SnapRaise is hands down the best one available. They even have a program where they will give you your funding before you actually do your fundraiser. Nobody else does that. To check out the entire suite, go to snapraise.com. That's snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus, which is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us. It's also your one-stop platform for things like scheduling, student-athlete clearance and eligibility, coaches tracking, and a whole lot more. As an AD, I used Home Campus every single day, and it was just great, and you're going to love it too. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. Check them out today. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Nick, one of our long-standing talking points has to do with this idea of being socially aware. So how can an AD or a coach or a leader do a better job of being socially aware for their community? Do you have any advice for us?
I love this topic for many reasons. The main reason being, for me, where I work, I grew up here. All that was said previously, and it sort of goes back to what I suggested earlier. When you build relationships with the community and you keep your ear to the ground, it's so much easier for you, not necessarily to predict, but to understand what happens as it happens. And when you understand truly why something is happening with your kids, when you look at demographics, it's for us, for instance, for example, roughly 73% of our student body lives below the poverty line. And we have most of those kids that do are one of three races. They're African American, they're of Hispanic descent, or they're Caucasian. And to see those kids interact in a way that is humbling for me as an educator, because they're unified by the fact that there's a daily struggle that they have to get through. So when I, as a coach, and I have to constantly remind myself this, the relationship is the most important thing, because that kid has to worry about what's going to happen when he or she gets home. They've got to worry about their 3 or 4 siblings. They've got to worry about making sure, if they don't live in a home with their biological parent, whether it's their grandparent, parent, or guardian, are they taken care of? What do they need to do to support the family? And I constantly find myself in these situations as a coach where I'm about to lay into a kid for a certain behavior. And then I realize, wait a minute, there's something underlying here. And so at the next available opportunity, pull them to the side, and it's usually a frank conversation happens. And because I'm able to keep my ear to the ground and I know their family or I know their situation, I can immediately go into saying, okay, is it happen? Is XYZ happening again? Is so and so okay? How is such and such? And then immediately you can sort of see the guard, the mental, emotional wall that the kid usually has up in a situation like that. A lot of times it just crumbles in front of you, and the vulnerability is there. They're able to talk to you because, number one, they know you care. If you don't keep your ear to the ground and you don't know what's going on and you don't truly, genuinely invest in that relationship inside and outside of school, then that conversation where the wall kind of fades away can't happen. And so being socially aware is so critical because, yes, I'm a coach. I want to win. I'm very competitive. I'm a teacher. I want to make sure we meet the standards and they learn. And, we have high test scores and all that stuff. Great. Wonderful. That's what I get paid to do. But at the end of the day, the kid is what matters. How safe they feel and the lessons that they learn that are going to get them through the struggles, not only now, but in life. That's what matters to me. So when you talk about being socially aware, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. I know I'm long-winded, but understanding what's out there and understanding your community and who does what and why kids act. It's really hard for me to explain because I grew up here, but getting to know the adults of the community can tell you how the kids of the community are gonna act and why. And that's, to me, one of the biggest things that I've had to learn over the past 6 years of being back here that I never thought about as a kid, but it's paid dividends. And I don't know, I'm constantly reminded that at the end of the day, yeah, I want to win ball games and I want my kids to make good grades and pass these tests, but really I just want them to be successful later on in life.
Well, you touched on so many things, and throughout this interview, you have inserted either surface or just beneath the surface the whole idea about building relationships, and the idea of they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. Okay.
Yeah.
That the kids, they're going to give you that benefit of the doubt for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but they can see very quickly if you're sincere, if your heart's in it, and if you care for them. And again, we all want to win. We're all very competitive. We want to win those games, but we also know, or at least we should know, what is it? 6% of our kids are going to go on to college. 2% are going to get a scholarship. And yet you listen to so many coaches, that's their lead. Okay. It's about, my job's to get kids to the next level. No, it's not. It's to make sure all your kids have a great high school experience. Again, thank you so much for sharing that. Very, very cool and very, very important. This has been just a joy to spend some time with you, Nick. I wish we could go on, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an athletic director, but you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. So we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsored the toolbox segment. When we come back, we're going to find out what Nick Wilson is going to put into his new athletic director toolbox. So please stay with us. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and an affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire program. Athletic directors already hear back from the complainers, the 2% that want to gripe about everything. Athletic surveys not only connects you with the 2%, they also connect you with the 98% that support your program. That's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that allows you to take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. That's athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great.
Sweet.
Well, it's that time of the podcast. We have been listening today with Nick Wilson, a teacher and a coach, and also the director of ops and media at Ashville High School in Asheville, Alabama. Got a tremendous background in sports, and right now I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new athletic director on the very first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Nick, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
So it kind of carries with the rest of the theme of the episode, but the first thing is, and this is, I know that's going to sound terrible, the cell phone. And the cell phone for this reason. So at Asheville, we like to promote our athletes, but we want our community to get to know our athletes. Take your cell phone and a media release form if you need that for your school system, and film you and the kid talking. Post it on your social media. Game changer. Absolute game changer. We started doing that. We've turned it into a podcast called Dog Talk, available on all podcast platforms, and it's done wonders for our community and the support of our kids. So that's my first tool, cell phone. Second tool, again, sounds crazy, but QR codes. QR codes can be incredibly powerful, but specifically, this is how I suggest using them. And it, again, goes back to the theme of community relationships. I don't care what kind of information, whether it's a form on athletic surveys or whether it's some sort of website or some sort of huddle highlight. I don't care. Create a QR code, build some relationships in the community, post those things up everywhere in the community that you can. Use those QR codes and the digital space as much as possible to promote as many aspects of the program as possible. And my third one, if I can kind of roll into it, Jake, a digital program. It kind of goes back to the previous two, but you want to promote your athletes, you want to promote your partners, your sponsors. Create a digital program, and it's just a normal program, whether it's for football or volleyball. We do one for fall sports, winter sports, and spring sports at Asheville, and then just throw it out there. Throw it out there. The schedule's out there. The information's out there. Parents can save it. They can print it off if they want to hang it up in their and put it up in their living room if it's got pictures of their kids on it. We do free programs at Asheville High School, digital programs. We put QR codes up around the community for people to download them, and they love them. It costs you nothing if you've got somebody in-house that can make one. Otherwise, it's a one-time fee. You don't have to worry about them getting printed and distributing them and paying for them. It's a hassle. So those are three very simple, but three very simple things that kind of can do a little bit to just enhance the overall perspective and efficiency of the program.
Well, I love them all. Again, I think the digital program one, it might, again, you have to think about this. It's technology oriented, but you also hit on the relationships with communities, but it also might go into our unique category answer. I'm going to have to think about that. But again, all three easy ways to use technology, especially for that cranky old athletic director like I was before my eyes were open. Nick, thanks so much for sharing with us today. I know it's an incredibly busy time for you. One more time, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, what's the best way that they can get a hold of Nick Wilson?
My DMs are open on Twitter at Nick_K_Wilson, or my email address is available on our athletic website. It's nicholas.wilson@sccboe.org.
Nick Wilson, Ashville High School, thanks again for coming on the Educational AD podcast a second time, and all the best moving forward with all of your sports.
Jake, thank you for what you do, man. It's been a pleasure.
For our listeners, we appreciate you listening, and we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD podcast YouTube channel. Come back next week for another great interview, and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD podcast. We'll see you next time.